This is Rob Stone from Fox Sports.
This is Jochen Graff.
Hi, I'm Neil Collins.
You are listening to the Unused Substitutes.
The Unused Substitutes.
And you're listening to the Unused Substitutes.
Get off the bench!
Hey there, Little Red Riding Hood, I got a problem that is complicated. Going through case and I just can't ignore the signs. Hear them now, it's so loud it hurts. Hear me well and hear me how when the full moon is
Off
out.
the row, ball's gonna bounce down, it's three in the box. Bicycle kick! Goal! Rowdies! What a play! What a shot! And it's 1-0 Rowdies!
Good evening, everybody. You're listening to the Unused Substitutes live on Radio St. Pete, part of the Beautiful Game Network and sponsored by Roughneck Scarves. My name is Matt. On the other end of the internet, now that we can finally hear him, is the only person who was not announced as a new addition to the Rowdies today. An expansion, a new development. Steven, how are you doing?
Happy that I was not announced as an additional part of the Rowdies Club and all of the crazy signings that were stuff and announcements that went on today, because I'm not worthy of that. I'm just saying.
Look, I'm not going to lie. So when I left work today, I called up my ticket rep, Joe, and paid off the rest of my season ticket.
About dang time.
Well, yeah.
Tisk, tisk, tisk.
Oh, whatever. And he's like, "Oh yeah, did you see all the news today?" And I'm like, "Yeah. It's crazy." I actually was kind of hoping for no news, because I'm still like in the final stages of packing and grading and stuff. Because I'm leaving for Chattanooga tomorrow afternoon at about 4:00 in the afternoon. I'm not going all the way tomorrow, just about halfway. But I was like, "Oh man, I could kind of do with the night off and getting this stuff done." But then after seeing all the news, I was like, we have to.
Yeah. No, there's just a couple of things to talk about. One or two things. I mean, as topics, there might be subtopics. Just a few little things. I'm sure it'll be no time at all.
All right. So we're going to start off with what was going on 1 week ago. The Bundesliga friendly at Al Lang. I ended up not being able to get through traffic to get there in time, but came home, watched it on my new 55-inch 4K TV. It sounded incredible. You were there. I know this because they showed you after one of the goals. I don't remember which one it is by now, but it looked really good on TV. You were there in person. How did that compare to what you saw at the stadium?
So first of all, let me just say that game, even for a friendly, it's remarkable to see the talent difference. Like, I mean, my goodness, at times that was really fun soccer to watch. So kudos for Hertha Berlin and Eintracht Frankfurt for putting on a great show. That was fun to watch, fun to be a part of. The production as a whole in terms of that was amazing. It was great. It was a good time. There's a lot of people that showed up for that. And here's the crazy part about that. Nobody expected that. So it was funny because I got to the game late because I came straight from work. And so I got to the game late, and it was interesting. Originally speaking, they were only going to have the midfield seats open because that's what they thought would actually be the only demand for seating for the stadium for the game. Talking to some folks in the club, they were like, look, there's no talk about this game really in some of the circles that we know of and that exist. So we don't think there's a lot of traction for this. So we're not expecting a huge crowd for the night. Okay, that's fine. That made sense. It made sense to do what they were doing and making it free and all that kind of stuff. And then like people just kept coming and kept coming. Like, I got there about a half an hour late, and even I had to wait in line for a couple of people trying to get through the gates, and there were people that were behind me, and I'm showing up a half an hour late for this game. I think all told, they had close to between 4,000 and 5,000 people there ended up showing up for the game, roughly speaking, because it went all the way from the one end of the stadium behind the goal all the way out to where the club seat ends in the corner area, like on the other side of that corner.
Right.
That was where, and they filled up a good amount of the seating for that like almost 2/3 of the section or the stadium when you start counting midfield too. It was great. Like, it was a shockingly good turnout for something that really wasn't being talked about openly in terms of, social media and what they were anticipating. Now, granted, they were like, in some ways, it's like, how could you not know this many people would show up? Because, like, they were doing advertising. I heard radio ads about the game on, like, sports radio during the week. So, like, Florida Cup was spending money for getting people to come, or somebody was spending the money, maybe Frankfurt, who knows? But somebody was spending the money to get people to show up. So it's kind of funny that they were anticipating, like, basically nobody, and then all of a sudden they have 4,000 people come in the door. So, like, they didn't even have, like, the proper number of, like, bathroom facilities opened or concession stands open. Like,
yeah, I saw several comments about that.
Yeah, because they had no idea. They had no earthly clue based on what they knew of stuff. But other than that, oh my gosh, it was amazing. Like, it was a great, great night for some soccer and getting people to that stadium.
The biggest thing that stood out to me, and you're talking about how the quality of play, the level of play was so noticeable. Just hearing the way they struck the ball coming across TV, like I don't know how to explain it, but it was just a solid, stronger strike of the ball when you would hear these guys kick it, and it was insane. But yeah, I could tell watching it, like, people are, and they were saying, like, up until about halftime, people are still filing in. And I was like, oh man, the midfield section's full. They must be putting people there for TV, which is a smart move. But then they're showing it, and it's the midfield's full, and it's going over into the bowl section, and it's, they started out, I think, trying to fill the lower levels, and then they were like, okay, keep pushing people up. Like, the other side of the press box on over, they kind of kept that empty. I know they had a TV camera down there. Around the dugout level, and there were people who were like saying, hey, open those seats up too, we're trying to get more people in here. It was a great game, especially apparently since one team was coached by a guy who's not even certified as a coach to do this.
Yeah,
pretty good job. I think, overall the lessons learned are have more German friendlies, publicize them even more, and next time sell tickets like that. Man, that was... Now, again, this is and I tried talking to some people about this, and I think I mentioned it on Reddit somewhere. I don't know. I'm assuming it's the same setup as in years past, and these games are not run, like, the team has the Rowdies have very little to do with these games. Like, there's some staff members there as far as, like, stadium setup and stuff like that, working with the grounds crew, but the team's not involved in this. They're not making the call on who's running how many concessions are open, how many bathrooms are open. They're getting some free publicity out of it. But in games past where I've actually gotten media credentials to cover it, I've had to apply to a whole different source. There's totally different rules about where, like, for the regular Rowdies games, we can just kind of go all over on the field. And it was, you could only be in this area, photographers only in this area. So it's a different setup as far as how the game is being managed. So, I'm sure they probably have, like, someone from the front office as, like, a liaison to work with them. But in the future, I think, and I wonder how much of it is because Frankfurt was down here in Bradenton running 2-a-day open practices and promoting the heck out of it. I don't know how big of a impact that had on the game, like, because it's going to be a lot of people kind of local to here would be coming out there and then going up there. Maybe, but But yeah, it was fun to watch. So let's have some more of those in the future, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, then again, at the same time, it's depending on who's paying for what. I mean,
Right.
You can't make them all free. At some point, somebody's going to have to spend money to get there. So, who knows? I mean, hey, it was a free one-off. If it happens again, that's cool. If it pays, who knows if that many people would show up if there was an actual ticket involved. Who knows? For what it was fun. And it was a good time. It was a good turnout. And I'll let the business people make that decision going
Exactly.
forward.
Exactly.
But
But
they all had fun.
they've brought in teams from they had South American teams for the games at Al Lang before. We had one of the Russian teams and one of the Polish teams in. They may have found get two Bundesliga teams. They're on their winter break at that time. They're doing their winter training camps. The commentators who weren't the regular Rowdies crew either were mentioning, it was a lot of reserve and backup players. So really, this is kind of a glorified scrimmage in front of a crowd during your training break. So I guess really it's who's footing the bill for them to come from Germany over here, but that they might have found a key to unlock a door as far as getting even the casual local soccer fans into Al Lang, short of bringing in Premier League teams.
Yeah, so here's the thing that's interesting about that too is that we were meeting people that were traveling ridiculous amounts of way to get to that game. We were talking to somebody, I think that was somebody out in the Midwest that came out to the game, like a St. Louis or something like that. We met one of the folks who's involved with Brickyard Battalion.
Oh, cool.
With Indy.
Right.
That I'm not sure if she was there specifically for the game or if she just happened to be in town while the game was happening. But either way, that's somebody that wasn't necessarily a local that was attending. So I think that's the big question is how many of those people were lifelong Frankfurt fans and hey, this is the only chance I'm going to go see these people without having to travel outside of the United States. Maybe that plays a part into, I don't know what percentage of the crowd is like that. Cause you still got to take the context that it's
right.
4,500 people in a region of 4 million and not all of those are locals. So, I'm not sure how much of that is local exposure or if that's just national level exposure of people just literally making the trip to see that. I would be curious to know the numbers. I mean, I don't know if anybody's going to know the numbers officially. It's not like people are polling for that, but it's
maybe
still
someone should. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, everything in context, right? That's how I've always viewed everything is everything in context. So it's 4,500 people in a region of 4 million. And we know for a fact that not everybody was local. So,
but on a weeknight in January,
it was cool.
It's a building block.
It's something we can expect all the time going forward, or if it's even going to bear fruit for the Rowdies or anything like that. But it was fun for what it was, and we all had a good night.
Yeah, so that was cool. Let's go ahead and hop into the next thing. Last week we talked about, what was it, the first 3 or 4 games, I think, of the schedule. Now we have the entire schedule with all its quirks and things. So I thought we kind of just go through this, break it down month by month, and go over the games and talk about our impression of it. What do you feel like?
You can do whatever you want.
All right, so let's start off. We've got the month of March, and we talked a little bit about this. I sound like a car salesman right there. For March, first home game is away. We talked about it last week to the Red Bull 2 York on Saturday, March 7th, and all these games so far are times TBD. Second away game, second game of the month, Friday, March 13th at Miami FC. That's the one I'm planning on going to. It sounds like a lot of people might be making that trip. Then we get our home opener, third game of the season, Saturday, March 21st versus North Carolina FC. And then Pittsburgh Riverhounds come in on Friday, March 27th to close out the month. I loved last year that we had all Saturday home games. And we don't have a ton of non-Saturday home games this year. But there's one Friday one and one Sunday one. There's not even a Wednesday one, I don't think.
No, there is. There is one Wednesday night
When was
home
it?
game, and there is one Friday night home game.
Okay, so we don't have a Sunday one. We do have a Wednesday one then. Okay. That's a strong start to the season. Those are all, I mean, it remains to be seen what Miami's going to be, but we know what they've been in the past. Red Bulls, North Carolina, Pittsburgh. If I'm not mistaken, those were all playoff teams last year. Like North Carolina, I think, was in the play-in game, if I remember correctly. Lost that one.
That's a top half of the table start to the season.
That is a very strong start. All right, then we hop into April. Home. So we've got basically a 3-game homestand after the first 2 away games. Home versus Sporting Kansas City 2. I have to find my silly name for whatever they're going to be as a 2-team. We'll see. Then
Sporting Kansas City 2 is literally going to be the name of the team.
I know, but I have to something silly that like it's Red Bull 2 York and the
hey listeners, help us out. How can we make fun of Sporting Kansas City 2 now that they're no longer called Sweat Park?
The Pennsylvania Union, Atlanta United.
I don't know. We'll figure something. We could always just call them Sweat Park and just forever label Sporting KC 2 as Sweat Park. We just always call them that.
I wish they would have gone with a throwback to the original club name and called them the Whiz Kids. Someone mentioned that. I forget who it was that mentioned it on Twitter, but I saw that and I think that's perfect. So SKC2 comes in on Saturday, April 4th. Then another away game to Miami FC on Saturday, April 11th. That one I'm not going to be able to be at. Did we ever get this cleared up? There were two things in on the schedule that were incorrect. One was I think Memphis was listed away twice, and then this game was maybe Saturday, maybe Sunday.
So, well, the Memphis thing was a coloring issue, I think, on that one because the second game was meant to be a home game, and that just has to do with the coloring on the graphics. Right. They just missed one. The April situation with the Miami trip. I actually did reach out, get some clarification on that. And I was told that the live schedule that's produced on the website that shows the Saturday, the 11th is the one that's accurate.
Okay. Cause that's the one that's, it's on the USL site also.
Yeah. Because it was like all of the original press releases that they created showed, Sunday the 12th, which is Easter.
Yeah.
And now apparently there actually is some USL games happening.
Yeah,
on
there
Easter
are two. According to the USL site, there are 2 games on Easter Sunday.
But yeah, I was told from a rep with our club that it was a little confusing because apparently the graphics, like how like all the teams had like a GIF video type thing for the schedule announcement. That's because they basically all third-partied that, right? Like I don't think it was all USL teams all coming up with their own versions of that. Like there was a reason why all the clubs had the same type of announcement style by and large. And that was because there was like a third party involved with that process. So getting the information to them to create the videos happened weeks ago.
Okay.
In a way. And so that schedule date had changed after all of that production had already gone into place. And that was the reason for the discrepancy, from what I understand.
I'm going to bet the teams were somewhat involved in doing that just because I saw the Rowdies communications guy and the indie guy kind of congratulating each other on the videos that they put out.
Well, I'm sure
they've got their fingers in the soup somewhere.
But I'm saying, like, I'm sure there was probably like a league incentive of, hey, let's do this. Let's get involved in social media, like as a way of doing it. Because it was no coincidence that like multiple teams had different styles of announcements. Like Phoenix had a funny one. And, there were a lot of clubs that had that type, if not all of them, like had that type of an announcement style. So I'm not sure how much of that was in-house, Well,
we'll find out soon if there's an announcement about the official USL schedule video partner that comes out at some point. It could happen. All right, so going back to April, we talked about Kansas City 2 away. So anyway, let me interrupt myself again after I interrupted myself. The reason that's a big issue is there's a wedding down here on the 11th.
Oh, boy.
A wedding that, number one, I'm officiating.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So we wanted to make sure we knew, because if it's Sunday, then we could all go to the game. But if it's Saturday, then especially since it's a road game where we're not going to have the regular like watch parties or the regular trips to won't be able to go on that trip, but we will have it streaming afterwards.
Just schedule the wedding for the early morning and then just drive down there after the game.
I don't get up early on Saturdays, okay?
It's totally a selfish thing to say, and I'm sorry to the two of you that are getting married.
Well, and luckily, like it's a Skyway Casuals wedding, so it's all Rowdies fans. Like we will plan accordingly, but we will not be up early in the morning. I promise you that. And then midweek away to Louisville City in their new stadium, which I think they're on the road for a little bit in the beginning of this year before they go. Like, I don't know if that's their home opener. No, it's not. That's not their home opener, but it'll be relatively soon, around that time. And then finish off the month at Charlotte Independence. Or home, versus Charlotte Independence. Not as tough maybe as March, because we're going to assume SKC and Charlotte weren't exactly the greatest teams last year. Louisville, still pretty darn good. And then an away trip to Miami. Maybe we're just going to go away to Miami once a month. That's going to be the new unbalanced schedule. Every month, one away game in Miami.
Just every trip, go to every month, just visit Miami. Yeah, there you go. Outer Fort Lauderdale.
Miami adjacent. All right, so I'll throw it over to you, and you take us through May and June.
Yeah, so May, the first two games that we start out for are going to be out on the road. May 2nd is going to be at St. Louis down that nice weekend. And then the following week is a Friday night game at Indy on the 8th. 1 week after that. Thankfully, in May, there's no midweek games for the USL team, but we're going to get to that because there's other reasons why there aren't any home games during the Wednesdays that month. Loudoun is May 16th. That'll be a nice little home game. And the week after that, we're on the road in Charleston, South Carolina, or outer Charleston, because I guess I don't know how you want to classify that. They're not technically in Charleston. They're playing on a grass field somewhere around the city. The final game in May.
All you need is a piece of grass and 2 goals and a ball. That's all you got to have.
That's true. That is true. Final game in May is a home game Saturday, May 30th, Philly 2, which is, of course, the rebranded Philadelphia, Steel thing. The idea that they were going to rebrand this 1930s club and then didn't have a home stadium in the proper city that actually had lights. So it didn't really work. But it is what it is. May's interesting because that's going to be a slow month, but that's going to be a question of how we're doing in Open Cup at this time, because that's going to be during the Open Cup, scheduling. So, and especially that and April as well, and technically the Open Cup itself starts in March. So when you look at this schedule, the first 3 months of the season, March, April, May, every game is on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. And a lot of that has to do with Open Cup scheduling, making sure that your midweek dates are open, because the open schedule itself hasn't come out yet. We don't know the actual weekends for that. We just know that the actual thing starts in March and that, we always come in a round or two later. So that'll be sometime in that area. April, May, are going to be the first couple of rounds the Rowdies are eligible for. So that's important to note when you're looking at the schedule as a whole. That's important detail to see why and how that schedule is getting created. Not to mention the other reason, which we're going to get into later in the show. Skipping over to June 3rd happens to be our first Wednesday game. That is an away trip to the baseball stadium in Memphis. It's also important because that'll be, I believe, the national broadcast game, if memory serves correct.
Yes, and very strong possibility I'm going to go to that game too.
Maybe I will. That's interesting thought. I've got vacation time to burn this year. I don't know.
Flights are not expensive, and I actually found lots of decent places to stay very close to the stadium too.
Interesting. We're going to talk after the show. So again, that's going to be our Wednesday game, and that is sandwiched between the May 30th game, home game against Philly. We travel to Memphis a couple days later, and then we're back home again because we have another home game. It is June 6th versus Atlanta United. We then, of course, go back to a week later. We travel to Hartford, June 13th. And then after that, we get about a week and a half break because then we play June 24th. It's a Wednesday night home game. That is our only Wednesday night home game of the year. And that's New York Red Bulls 2, which kind of particularly sucks because I hate the fact that we're playing a really good team on a Wednesday night. But anyways, somebody has to fill the slot, and it is what it is. But then we turn around 3 days later, and then we're at Birmingham. And that sucks even more because that's a trip that a lot of people would want to go to. And going from a home game on a Wednesday to an away game that a lot of people would want to travel to, that's just unfortunate timing.
Yeah, that's a little bit of tricky scheduling there.
So, I mean, that's obviously, so that first week in May, and that's the interesting thing is, again, if you look at the fact that when you look at the scheduling, if we do well in the first couple of rounds of the Open Cup, that means that June 3rd Wednesday night game being sandwiched between two home games, if you're looking at the possibility of playing a bunch of games in a row, that schedule is going to get tight in a hurry of a lot of games back to back to back to back to back. The further you get into the Open Cup.
You know what I love?
What?
Is that you put all these other things into certain context, but when it gets to like Open Cup, you're like, okay, so we're in the 5th round. We've knocked off 3 MLS clubs.
Well,
it's like your default go-to. I would love to do it, but I'm gonna go off of past trends that every couple of years now we're due to knock off another MLS team. I feel
we're due for a run,
but I don't know if it'll happen this year.
You listening here? Don't be so pessimistic on my Open Cup aspirations.
Pessimistic would be. I'm saying it's not happening. I'm saying I just don't know if it's happening this year. I'm not willing to bet money that I don't have on it yet.
I'm over here saying like 2022 Tampa Bay Rowdies CONCACAF Champions League champions. I'm over here like I'm ready to go, man. Like I've got the scarf design in my head, and we're ready to go for this, man. We're gonna conquer the continent. Anyways, but no, it's important to note, right? Like just in case, because again,
you gotta keep it in the back of your head.
Yeah, I mean, with the Open Cup, they're reformatting the teams and the way they enter into the rounds. So, like, good MLS teams get to go in a round later than the bad MLS teams. So,
is that how they're? I know because they're splitting it up. Like like some MLS teams are coming in a round earlier than others. Is it based on record or is it just like random draw?
No, it's based on record and it's based on CCL qualifications. So, if you qualified for CCL, then you come in the Open Cup later. Officially speaking, it has to do with the 4 Champions League qualified teams plus the 4 best American non-qualified teams for MLS in 2019. They enter the 4th round. The remaining clubs are all entering a round earlier in the 3rd round.
Okay.
Now, why that's important, though, is the fact that when you look at the way everything is structured, the Division 2 and 3 teams enter in the 2nd round. So we will all enter in round 2, because obviously round 1 is all amateur. So round 2 is, the first level professional clubs.
Right.
MLS teams get mixed in on the next thing. So we've only got to win 1 game now compared to last year and the years previously. We've had to win at least 2 to get to an MLS team. Now the reality is we only technically have to win 1 game for the chance to play an MLS team, which, by the way, because Orlando's a piece of garbage of a team, that's a possibility of an Open Cup game this year.
But
I'm just
because I was just thinking about this in previous years, because the way they like to keep the scheduling and keep the games kind of geographically centered until a certain point in time, it was a given that if you got to the MLS round, we'd be playing Orlando, but with Miami adjacent coming on the scene this year, you would assume with them having no prior record, they would be entering in like the early round we might have a chance to play them.
The only thing I would say to that is if you look at how the Open Cup has usually organized their teams, that the clubs from Miami typically don't play the next closest club. Usually those end up being the clubs that travel like crazy weird distances to fill up like the one team in like, North Carolina that didn't match up with a close geographical opponent. Usually because the airport like in Miami is flying everywhere. So it's easier for them to connect out and travel where they need to in the country. So I'm only saying that the possibility of a Rowdies Orlando game is there because typically the Miami clubs tend to travel like weird distances when they're with their matchups. So it's a possibility. That's kind of the idea that I'm aiming for. But like I said, it's important to note we've only got to win one game now to get to the possibility of playing MLS, which means that it's going to get interesting here on the scheduling. And again, with the fact that last week in May, first week of June is going to be back to back to back, then you take some time off and then just again back to back to back for a couple of days. It's going to get interesting to see how that happens here June and July. Right when it starts raining a whole lot.
Right. So speaking of July, I'll hop in there. I'll take over July and August. We get the return of the July 4th home match. This time against St. Louis FC, and it is a Saturday, so maybe it's just a freak coincidence. But let's have some fireworks there.
Fireworks.
They better, we'll get to the theme nights in a minute, but July 4th better have some fireworks. Is all I'm saying. Then we go on the road Sunday, July 2nd to SKC again. Back home versus Memphis on Saturday, July 18th. Finish off the month away to North Carolina on Saturday, July 25th. So we've only got the one Sunday game there, and it's a road game anyway. So we'll have plenty of opportunities to go and get very warm at Al Lang that month. Into August, Sunday, August 2nd, away to Philadelphia Union. Then August 8th, Miami FC finally makes a trip to Al Lang. Got a little bit of a homestand there. We're home on August 8th and August 15th. August 8th against Miami, August 8th again, or 15th against Indy 11. Then we make a trip to Pittsburgh in August. Haven't been there before, but I'm hoping Pittsburgh in August is a little bit nicer weather-wise than Florida in August. And then wrap up that month again home with Louisville City. Thoughts?
More home games than I would like for those 2 months, just because of the possibility of rain and stuff. But it's nice that we're not doubling up weeks in the hottest month of the year so far. As far as July and August, you're not playing double games those months, so that's good.
True. You're not getting like the Wednesday with a 3-day turnaround Saturday and something like that. All right, so take us through September and the end of the season in October.
Yeah, so wrapping up the last 2 months of the season, September is important because September we've only got 3 games on the schedule. That happens to be our lightest workload of the months of the year, which, if I'm not mistaken, I think last year was 2, I think, with September, but I'd have to double check that. So September 5th, we start on the road Saturday at Loudoun, which, cool. The September 19th, so we will take a break the week ending of Saturday the 12th. That'll be an off week as far as that's concerned. So if you've got plans, if you want to go visit family, if you want to go travel, that's a good week in the Rowdy schedule to take off. The 19th is when we are back home. We will host Charleston in the lovely the chess tournament cup. I don't know what you call that. Do you call that a cup? Do you call that a cup competition when it's actually a chest? I don't know.
I'm calling it a cup.
The beer chest?
We'll put the beer in cups.
Do you call it the beer chest cup? It's the beer chest derby. It's really the beer chest derby because that's what we're going to do. But anyways, September 26th, the week after that, we are away at Charlotte, and then we go into October. So pretty simple here. We've got a back-to-back-to-back type weekend here. The 3rd, the 7th, and the 10th. We are home against Hartford. We travel to Atlanta, and then we're back home against Red Bulls 2, 3rd, the 7th, and the 10th. Thankfully, that's not that crazy. It's not as hard as some of the other trips we're taking. I will take a road midweek game to Atlanta because that's not really excessive. So I will count my blessings there.
Mm-hmm.
Final game of the season, we host the Legion on October 17th. And that, my friends, is the entirety of the Rowdies senior team schedule outside of the specific dates for Open Cup.
So looking at this, I posted some stuff earlier in the last week when the schedule came out, my kind of thoughts on it, my gut reactions. So the one thing, and we knew this was what was most likely to happen, we do have 3 games against 2 teams in the East. Every Eastern team, because there's one fewer team in the East than there is in the West, has 2 extra games against 2 different opponents. We've got an extra home game with New York Red Bull coming in, and we have an extra road game going to Miami. And it makes so we've got the same balanced schedule between the East and the West, because you need to have that when you start doing playoff seeding and home field and that kind of stuff. And you couldn't really cross over between the East and the West, because then the West would have an extra game or 2 in their schedule, and it'd be a mess. I still hate that, and someone posted it out on Reddit somewhere, and I don't know if they did it intentionally. It looks like they may have tried to do, everybody gets 1 game against someone that finished kind of upper half of the table last year, and 1 game against a team that kind of maybe in the middle to lower half. I just, I'll have to go back and look, but there's probably a team that has like Hartford and Atlanta. And yeah, maybe Hartford's going to be better this year, and it's not as a cakewalk, but you have to wait and see. But it feels like that it's a little bit of unfairness, because the way it's balanced out. Like New York might be our top half of the table team. They were a playoff team last year, but calling Miami a bottom half of the table team just because they didn't play in the league last year might not be the most valid thing. And it would have been fun to have, if we're going to get an extra home game against the team, send in like a Louisville or an Indy or something. Like, the games against Red Bull are good. Like, it's I still don't want to say rivalry because it's a 2 team. They're good matchups, but in Indy or Louisville, you're going to draw more fans, especially traveling fans will come down for that game. So I would have, if we're going to have something like that, I would have preferred to see something like that. But one thing I just noticed, you pointing out the bye week, September 12th, the break between the 5th and the 19th. So after the bye week, we've got 6 games left. 4 of them at home. That's a nice little setup for the end of the season run-in right there.
Yeah.
And those home
pretty good.
Those home games are Charleston, Hartford, to York, and Birmingham. So not that they're guaranteed points, but that's a nice way to end the season.
Well, more importantly, though, so you have your bye week on the 12th, but then your 2 away games for the end of the year are Charlotte and Atlanta, which is really not that bad of a trip as far as traveling is concerned.
No.
So that's actually really good. That means that the last, 6 weeks, 8 weeks of the season, we're not even really traveling much across the country.
No, we're...
After that September 5th game, we're pretty much staying local. Like the boys on the guys in the club, they're really staying relatively local to the point where you could almost bust a Charlotte. I mean, technically speaking, we bust a Charleston, but
yeah,
so I mean, it's actually, that's a really cool facet of the schedule when you really start analyzing it. That's a really cool little tidbit. So, hopefully we put ourselves in a position that we can take advantage of that. Because I mean, I'd hate to walk into that needing points, but it'd be really cool walking into that where we can kind of secure a already relatively secure position.
Right. Yeah.
All
right. So last year they had the promotional schedule with the different goodies and stuff they gave out, similar to like what a baseball team does. And maybe that was a Ray's marketing department idea. It was good. I thought it was good. This year it looks like they're going to go away from that and go to theme nights.
Yes.
For certain games. So the theme nights are it's like 1 a month, starting in April, with April 4th the Sunshine City Night. It's kind of a celebration of all things St. Petersburg. May 16th is Team Tampa Bay, which is all of the other local sports teams. will somehow be part of that. Maybe we'll see a bunch of different gear and stands, or they'll do something. I don't know. It'll be cool. June 6th is going to be Pride Night. July 18th, halfway to Gasparilla. And there also better be a July 4th fireworks night in there, too. August 8th, back to school. And I was thinking about this, too, because they've done this in the past where they've put out like ticket deals and group deals for teachers in different counties around the area. Like, okay, back to school night's cool for the kids that are going to come out, but maybe there's some back to school night beer specials for the teachers about to go back to school in the beer garden food truck area. There's a lot of I've got a lot of friends and coworkers and people around the area that come up for games. Let's make that happen. And last theme night, October 10th, for Hispanic Heritage Month is going to be Hispanic Heritage Night, so that'll be a fun one as well too. Maybe they'll come back and do some promotions or some giveaways also, but this looks to be like their way of doing this.
Worth pointing out that
I skipped September 19th, Superhero Night.
Yes.
I'm really just kind of flattered that they're going to celebrate me on that evening. Right after back to school. I'm very cool with that.
So it's interesting to note that there are 7 theme nights? 7 theme nights, and what do we have? 4 of them are 2 teams. FYI.
So, a way to try and draw crowds out for those games that historically see lower attendance.
I wasn't going to put the 2 and 2 together on the film, but sure. No, that's what it is. Sunshine City Night is SKC 2. Team Tampa Bay Night is the game against Loudoun. Pride Night is Atlanta 2. Halfway to Gasparilla, which, let's be real, is Sons of Pirates Night. Just saying.
True.
That's going to be the game against Memphis. Back to school night is a home game against Miami, which is good because that means hopefully we'll get a heck of a big crowd for that game, depending on the promotion that you do for that. So
right.
Kudos to the team. Hopefully that actually works in our favor for a big crowd that night.
Free beers for teachers.
Superhero night is September 19th, and then Hispanic night is October 10th. So that is, because Hispanic night's against New York Red Bulls too, which again is cool in general. But
right.
Superhero nights against Charleston Battery. So yeah, I mean, like I said, we'll see. I think a few of these were just to get crowds for the 2 teams. Let's be real. But I think the big one right now is the Miami home game for back to school night on August 8th. I think that is a great combination potential there. So hopefully we can get a heck of a big crowd for that game.
So now I want to know, is Sunshine City Night for SKC, is that a really, really strained attempt at a pun for doing SKC in the Sunshine, was it KC in the Sunshine, whatever band?
I got nothing. Sure, why not? That's exactly what we'll call it.
This is why they don't let me do theme nights.
No, Matt, you're doing fine.
Casey and the Sunshine
man,
Boys or something. All right. So that was all kind of stuff between last week and today. Today, they just started dropping bombs today.
Dropped.
Yeah. There are 2 new teams in the Rowdies family. One I guess we'll say is a rebirth.
Back again.
The Rowdies U23 club is back. They're going to be playing in USL League 2. But here's kind of the cool thing. So we've got the Development Academy kind of stuff with Tampa Bay United Rowdies. That's been like the academy, the youth affiliate, through what was formerly the Tampa Bay United, and now it's Tampa Bay United Rowdies. They've gone out with this and the next team that we're going to talk about and kind of built these relationships up with the other prominent youth soccer groups in the area. So Rowdies U23 is actually going to be a joint operation between the Rowdies and Chargers SC, which I think they're in Hillsborough, Pinellas. I know they're down here because my daughter did rec soccer with them for like a year or 2. They're going to be coached by former Rowdy, 2012 NASL Championship team member, Andres the Wrangler Arango.
A Wrangler.
Frequent visitor to the mob section.
Yes.
That's pretty awesome. Like, it's cool to get him back in the loop. Even though this is going to be a joint operation between Rowdies and the Chargers, it's not like open to Chargers, like exclusively Chargers players. They said a significant portion of the team will be made up, from people from that organization, but there is going to be open tryouts. There's going to be other players, non-Chargers players being involved in this too. They're going to play in USL 2. They're going to play at Al Lang. The USL 2 season is from May to July. They said mostly Wednesday night games. If you saw the leaked Sarasota schedule that was out a couple of weeks ago, that's pretty much how it works. And the games are going to be free.
Yes.
Which is nice. Yeah. Now, Wednesday night, if we're doing the show, it's going to be kind of hard for us to be there. We are currently discussing
we got to figure that out.
I have some plans. I've already started talking to some people about some stuff, but the Rowdies might not be the only people expanding. Let's just put it that way. We'll talk more about this later. I'm excited for this.
I am too. Okay, so let's keep in mind. So this is the College Summer League. Okay, that's what this is primarily set up to be. Between this and NPSL, that's basically where all the college kids play their spring soccer, spring and early summer. So there's no discovery rights, to my knowledge, as far as USL goes. So it's not like any of the players that are playing for them have to go to the Rowdies. They can technically go to other USL clubs if they want to. To my knowledge, there's no exclusivity built into those contracts yet, though I believe there should be some sort of discovery rights type of deal where. But anyways, let's not divulge there. That's just a personal opinion of mine. So keep in mind that the teams they would be playing. Okay, so the Southeast Division, as it's created right now, is Daytona, Miami City, a club named Florida Elite, which I think is Miami area, but I don't remember. Lakeland Tropics, Sarasota Metropolis, the Villages, Tritons, which I'm not even sure where they're from, and Weston, which is a South Florida team.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the clubs, assuming nobody drops out, that's going to be the bulk of the clubs that we're going to be playing against. So keep in mind, there's going to be other opportunities to see the U23 guys that are going to be relatively local. And so that'll be fun. I'm excited about this because it's just cool to see more Rowdy soccer. I don't care where it is. I went to a couple of games at Waters Complex. I'm not sure if you did.
No.
Yeah, I went to I think 2 when the first go around, when they were at the Waters Complex. I did go to 2 games. It was fun. I mean, it is what it is. And it was a chance for some guys to rehab because, again, famously in our case, Keith Savage rehabbed at a Rowdies 2 for a little while here, coming off of an injury. So yeah, no, it was great. It was we were excited about that. So I'm like I said, and the fact, again, I am more than thrilled about the fact that Arango's involved with that. I know he's been coaching with Chargers for the last couple of years now. I've been following him on Twitter. He's fun to follow on Twitter. It's always good. He's interactive with you if you ever have a question for him. So you definitely should follow him. But yeah, no, this is fun. I just wish that there was some sort of exclusivity rules. That's all I'm saying. I wish there was some sort of discovery rights where if a player wants to play in USL, then the Rowdies would have first crack at them type of deal. That's just saying.
Right. The other big news that it first made it was supposed to be announced around the same time. I think actually this was supposed to be announced earlier in the day, but then crossing I's and dotting T's and all that stuff. There's now a Rowdies women's side.
The ladies.
This is going to be a joint operation with the Rowdies and Pinellas County United SC, who teased yesterday on Twitter. They had a big announcement to make, and it was a picture of some of their staff at Al Lang. So I had a feeling it was going to be something Rowdies related because, well, that's just common sense. This is going to be so. A couple years ago, they had the WPSL side, and then last year the Rowdies dropped out of WPSL, and it went I think it was the Lakeland Tropics were running this club, but now it's going to be under the operation of Pinellas County United and the Rowdies, coached by former Rowdy Don Tobin, who I will admit I had not heard of before, and went and did some Google searching on him. Boy, he enjoyed the 80s. That guy was wow. The pictures are incredible. Man, he had almost Perry level hair and a mustache to go with it. It's high quality. Originally from Liverpool too, but for the people who like certain sides of Liverpool, like I do, he was not from the right one because he played for the blue team for a while. But they're going to be playing in WPSL. Same time frame for a schedule, May through July. Again, games at Al Lang. Again, free admission. This is
the important thing to consider on this one is that those games are probably not going to be on Wednesdays. They're probably not going to be on the weekends. You're probably looking at Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
So I went through the
surprises.
The WPSL site and started looking at schedules for the Sunshine Conference, which is where the Rowdies will be, because that's all Florida teams from last season. And again, it's going to depend on the team and the facilities they have access to. But there were a lot of Sunday games, which I could see as a possibility. There were some Monday. There were some teams that played Saturdays because they're playing at high schools or something like that. Outside of you're in the summer months here, so you're outside of football season. So it's a possibility. But I could almost see it being spaced out with maybe you've got a Rowdies home game Saturday, maybe the women play Sunday or Monday, the U23s on Wednesday. They want to get some time built in at least for the grounds crew to work their magic to make sure the pitch is in the right condition. And let's face it, I'm excited about these teams, but obviously the top priority is going to be, at least when it comes to Al Lang, is going to be the senior side. So they're going to want to have the pitch in as good a shape and ready to go for them as they can be. So I don't know if you'd see Wednesday doubleheaders and have that much stress put onto the turf 3-4 days before a home game. But you could easily see a game being played the next day or like a Monday, maybe Tuesday. We'll have to talk to some people and try and find out. But those schedules will come out shortly, hopefully. There's a lot of USL and MLS teams that are getting into NWSL, and this isn't that. WPSL is amateur, but it's a start. It's and I say this without any insight or information or hints or anything. But I would imagine that if there's a demonstrated enough interest in this WPSL side, it may be an encouragement down the road to explore other possibilities as well. Who knows?
Well, you got to show up.
You got to start somewhere, yeah.
You got to show up. I mean, that's the thing. If you want – the Rays thankfully have enough money that you got to remember, one MLB level contract at a minimum is almost what you're spending on a NWSL team for the roster, considering the federation picks up the vast majority of the tab for the top tier players. So, the out of pocket day-to-day expenses for an NWSL owner are very small. If you want an NWSL club, you got to show up for the WPSL games. That's just a bottom line fact. Now, obviously we were talking about the fact that this is an amateur league. This is the reason why it's running the exact same time as Rowdies U23 is because it's literally the exact kind of league. It's the summer, spring type league for college age players to get more games in because college seasons are so stupidly short. That's what this is. So, again, even if the Rowdies launched an NWSL club later, it's not a guarantee that those players are going to play for us, years down the line. So, these are all things that are important little tidbits and details. But, that's where we stand with this. But again, it's a chance. They're at Al Lang. So again, if you want something more expansive, of a, you know, of a franchise, of an entity, as a club, if you want these things to happen, you gotta show up to the games. And that's just the bottom line. Now, my question is this. The name of the team for the women's side. It kind of looked like they were going with Rowdies Women.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's official. I don't know if that's actually what they're going with. I don't know if that was just what they were using to announce the thing. I don't even know if they're necessarily using a different kind of crest. That is a question that I would actually want to ask. We might even ask this. Maybe I'll have you post this up on the, the official Twitter account. Is what would you want to name a Rowdies women's team? Like, if you had the option of doing it yourself, I mean, obviously, it's the club, I'm sure, is probably going to do what it's going to do regardless. But, like, if you as an audience had the chance to name the Rowdies, like, women's side, how would you actually distinguish it? Or how would you do that if you had the chance for it? You know, would you do something like a radically different brand altogether, or badging altogether? Or, you know, I don't know. I don't really know if there's a right answer for that, but I would love to see what you guys have to say for thoughts. So if you have ideas, by all means, reach out to us, post some ideas on Twitter and Facebook, and we'll kind of keep a discussion going.
So just off the top of my head, and putting the bare minimum of thought into it, as I do most things.
I was gonna say that doesn't take much from you.
Like I'm not of the mind that it's, you know, something like Lady Rowdies or something like Rowdies Women is probably is the best bet. Like, unless you go with a completely different name, like it's not Rowdies related at all, or something. Like, don't drag up the past and call them the Wowdies. Don't, like.
Yeah, no, definitely.
It's the Rowdies women's side. Like, you know, some of the English teams have did this for a while, but like, you know, Liverpool used to be like Liverpool Ladies. They might even still go by that. I'm not sure, but a lot of them are kind of going to now. It's like Chelsea FC Women, Arsenal FC Women. Like, it's a Rowdies team with female players, then it's, you know, it's Rowdies Women, if you're going to differentiate it. Yeah, the press release kind of used the same badge that Rowdies 2, Rowdies U23 is using, with Rowdies Women in there. I suspect that will probably be what they go with, at least for this season, I would guess, but we'll wait and see what happens. But I'm excited about it, you know, because, you know, there was the WPSL side before, and they played, I think, they played out at Waters too, didn't they?
I thought they played at Azalea.
It was Azalea, yeah.
I thought they played at
yeah,
Azalea.
that would make sense, because it was part of Pinellas County, which was the Azalea Youth League operation. But they're going to take this and they're going to put it on kind of equal footing by having it at Al Lang.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be different because it's free admission, and, you know, who knows what the parking and the concession, all stuff's going to be like. But they're going to take it and put it in the stadium, and it's, you know, not saying that they're like throwing down a gauntlet, but I think it's kind of a challenge to the people, and we've been talking about it online and saying that we should have this. Let's do this. This would be great.
Yeah, you do.
Here you go.
Here's your test.
Yes, it's not NWSL. You're not getting U.S. women's team players in here visiting in games like that.
Julie Ertz isn't going to be breaking any ankles at Al Lang Stadium. I'm just saying,
but
least not in the short term.
But if you're interested, then here's how you do it. Now, you know, could this be an opening step to down the road? Maybe having a female Suncoast Invitational where you have some of these NWSL teams come in. Maybe?
Oh, don't even tempt me with that good time.
That would be fantastic.
Don't even.
You know, there's one of those Dutch Lion organization. They've got a female team. It's Florida Gulf Coast Dutch Lions. Like, you could do a WPSL versus NWSL kind of a thing. But since I mentioned it, that kind of segues into our last thing, which I almost completely forgot about while I was typing all this stuff up. We have the full preseason.
That was a great mid-show like chat moment. Was the oh crap, I forgot to type in this segment,
and I see all of a sudden you're like,
what's
he? Oh, preseason. So the full preseason schedule came out today as well. It's all in February, mix of amateur, of semi-pro, of college pro teams. So preseason kicks off February, because today was the first day of training camp.
Yes. Well,
Players
yeah.
reported, got physicals. Forrest Lasso's bragging about his weight. Good for you. I lost 4 pounds like last week when we had our weigh in at school. Anyway, I'm not down to Forrest Lasso levels yet, but I'm trying. February 1st, preseason kicks off with a closed door game against the Chivas Florida U23s. I bet you might see a lot of these players that we don't know who they are yet, that haven't been announced, that are probably younger players, might be playing in a game like that, maybe with some of the Tampa Bay United Rowdies players, something like that. February 8th.
Well, keep in mind with Chivas USA, the U20. Oh, Chivas USA, listen to me. The Chivas U23 game, that might also be the next step of whatever players were invited out for the tryout.
Yeah.
So
a week later,
that's probably
February 8th, at University of North Florida. It just so happens I'm going to be about an hour away that day. My daughter has another competition down in
like magic
that area in Volusia, so I might just have to make a little side detour up the road once we get schedules. Then the air quote Suncoast Invitational games. We'll talk more about this in a minute. February 15th, Montreal Impact. I'm going to be in Orlando at Disney that time, so
sucks to be you.
Yet again, another. I know I'm going to miss out on Thierry Henry coming to Al Lang. Then the next week, February 22nd, Miami adjacent, another Suncoast Invitational game. There's one other one at Al Lang on the 15th. That's when Philly plays Miami, isn't it? Is the other part of that doubleheader? I saw it in the press release.
I don't.
Hold on, I have it right in front of me. Yes, on Saturday, February 15th, Miami adjacent will play the Philadelphia Union at 4 p.m. before the Rowdies play the Impact at 7 p.m. All the Suncoast games are free, and you don't even like before. I think you had to like RSVP for a ticket or something. You don't even have to do that. Just show up. Just go to the games. It's free. Then the day after the Miami adjacent game, there's another closed door game against South Georgia Tormenta. I would really like to go see that game, actually.
Yeah.
Just to watch.
It'd be fun just to watch. Yeah.
They don't have Alex Morel anymore, by the way.
I noticed that.
He signed with Greenville. And then preseason wraps up February 28th with the customary game at USF. That game, there will be tickets on sale through USF for that at a time and date made available in the future. Can I throw a hot take out there?
Sure.
Can we just stop calling it the Suncoast Invitational? You're not even having all the teams playing each other. Like, we're not playing Philly this year. If you give something a name, then give it a structure. And there's no structure. It's here's some MLS teams that are in town for preseason training, and we're going to play them.
Yeah, but if you give it a title, it's something you can market. Yeah. That's the thing. It's all about marketing and trying to build a brand. I mean, you could make an argument that maybe they're trying to go away from it, and that's the reason why it's not as big of a giant news story with all of its own branding.
That's kind of what I think.
And maybe that's part of it. It's hard to say. I mean, again, who knows? I don't know what the Rays have planned for that. Because again, so normally speaking, the Suncoast Invitational games have always been usually free for season ticket holders specifically. It was the non-season ticket holders that I wasn't sure about. I know a couple of years ago they charged for those games. But I'll say this, as far as the scheduling, it's also worth pointing out the UNF game on February 8th. I believe that one's also free admission. It's not just the
I think so,
games here.
It is. It's open to public and free of charge.
Yeah, so I think it's just the USF game that'll probably be like a $5 entrance fee or something like that. But here's the important thing about the two MLS games that we're playing. These are not stupid pushover preseason games. So here's the cool part. Montreal Impact, we are the final warm-up game before they go to Saprissa in Costa Rica for their Champions League game. Holy smokes. That is an awesome opportunity. Now, granted, it sucks that it's only 3 games into the official preseason. Who knows what they're going to be doing for closed-door scrimmages and things like that, because there's plenty of teams in the area. But that is a huge game that everybody should want to go to, because Montreal and Thierry Henry is going to have that team banging on all cylinders that night. You want to measure yourself up. That is a game you want to measure yourself to. What's cool about this, though, is that the next weekend with Miami, outer Miami, you can sure as heck believe they're bringing people for that game. Inaugural season, we all make fun of Miami, but there actually is some pretty active groups that are trying to get supporter kind of culture developed with the new club and the new identity down there.
Right.
So, for better or worse, you can make your arguments whether they, whatever, as far as the politics of the soccer in South Florida. But the fact is, there's a lot of people that are really interested in this particular club with the Beckham thing going on. Those people are going to come and they're going to make a lot of noise. So I hope that Ralph's Mob members, I hope that Skyway Casual members, I hope that just the Rowdies fan base in general is ready to support our guys, because if you don't show up and you don't show up ready to go, they're going to overwhelm you, and that's going to end up sounding like one of these future outer Miami home games. And I don't want that to happen in our grounds, especially when in-state rival potential, because again, hypothetically, we could play them in the Open Cup for all we know. So I don't want that to be a situation to lead into any type of trash talk because our fan base decided to sit on their butt for a preseason game. No, we've got to be out there. So those are two really awesome games for preseason with a lot of context to them, which of course is
because you're like you said, you're going to have Montreal getting ready to go off for Champions League, but also you've got a team that's trying to prove, players trying to prove themselves to their new coach. Then you're going to have the Inter Miami game, which, by the way, is likely to feature two former Rowdies in John McCarthy and Ben Sweat making a return to Al Lang. So that'll be fun. And if it's kind of hard to say that you're starting some kind of rivalry with Miami because they're in a different league, but when we get into the regular season a month later, that first road trip to Miami on Friday the 13th is the day before Miami Adjacent's home opener. So you could, if you're interested in making a weekend out of it, go over there, and as long as they're not playing Orlando or Cincinnati, go cheer for the road team in that game. It could be a beginning of a fun little time in Florida soccer. So keep an eye out for the USF ticket information, and then I'll definitely be at the Miami game, the Miami Adjacent. Quite possibly at the UNF game, and I'm going to do my best to get up to the USF game this year as well, and that'll take care of preseason for that. But yeah, and so my kind of second point with that, the whole Suncoast Invitational started as the idea was soccer spring training, and these clubs are coming down here. It's nice weather, it's good, and then IMG really got into the preseason business. So if teams are coming down here, like Montreal's training at using Al Lang, using the USF facility for their preseason training, but there's a ton of teams coming down here. I went to go pull up something from Sarasota Metropolis about their schedule to talk about U23s, but their top tweet from 6 hours ago is that they've got a match confirmed against FC Cincinnati on Friday, February 21st at IMG. There's so many teams down here for different bits of time that detracts from the idea of the Suncoast Invitational as well. Sometimes there'll be some teams that train there and come up for a game. That's happened in the past, or sometimes the Rowdies have played a game down here. You can just schedule a couple MLS teams and play them, and you don't necessarily have to call it something. The calling it something hasn't drawn crowds in. There's some Montreal fans that make the trip.
Yeah,
there's some Montreal fans that make the trip, and I see them talk about it on Twitter a lot. They love coming down for the games, but you're not packing the stadium out for this. And you might now, if Beckham's going to show up, if Thierry Henry's going to show up, and then you might you get a little increase in crowds when Lampard and Drogba and them came before. Then there were more people coming out for those games, but as a rule, not as much. Maybe just drop the pretense and just play the games.
Yeah, I mean, you got to remember, so Cincinnati's coming to town. Nashville's actually going to be playing a game against Cincinnati at IMG.
I think they're actually playing at Premier Sports.
Well, okay.
Someone's playing at Premier Sports. which was kind
Manatee
of a
County.
cool thing, yeah. Because there's an actual 5,000 seat soccer specific stadium, not the IMG backfields or the IMG football stadium.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, there's multiple clubs that are doing this. Of course, we all know the fact that Philadelphia Union in general have been pushing more and more. Of course, that's a city government thing, and that's Philadelphia Phillies being involved too.
They've got that
of drawing
connection.
Philadelphia to town, every spring, and now they're trying to push the soccer thing because they've got like 6 games or something like that, all local.
Yeah,
beyond just the one that's
they're playing FC Dallas and Atlanta United. Like there's a lot of teams in the area.
FC Dallas is coming to town. I mean, there's all sorts of clubs that are going to be in the area. I believe there's also an Icelandic club that's going to be in the area as well, Reykjavik.
Oh, it's not Valor again? Like Shane Hill's going to come out of retirement to start fighting them one more time?
Yeah, right. No, I think Reykjavik is in town for in February as well. So there's some interesting names, but again, it's hard to build a brand for a specific preseason tournament when all of these other entities are suddenly competing against you. Like a few years ago, that really wasn't the case. And so we had the opportunity of building a brand, and then the numbers really didn't show up to what we thought they would.
It'd be kind of great if everyone could kind of work together and do one big production, but that makes too much sense.
Yeah.
So there really isn't any league news to go over. So this kind of feels like a natural end. We're already at 9:20, and I still have packing and grading to do. So I'm gonna
no new players, right?
There's nothing announced
so
yet.
It's the same 16 guys that we had from a couple weeks ago or last week or whatever.
I'll bet they had more than 16 at training camp today.
Oh, well, of course they did. There's probably like 40 people at training camp now.
Time to start scanning pictures. Try and detect.
Right.
Reverse Google image search on people's faces and stuff like that.
Hashtag manfoot to rowdies.
Yeah. Just reminds me of like a Bigfoot thing. I just think about how much Dan would have loved that.
That's absolutely one of my favorite little gimmick thing going on right now is manfoot to rowdies. I had to jump on that just because it was hilarious.
All right, so let's wrap this up. We love you, all the guys that reported today, whoever you are. We know Forrest Lasso was there. I haven't heard from anyone else, but I'm sure we'll hear and see more in the future. And we love you to the gang behind Rowdies U23 and Rowdies Women. I'm excited for this. I really want to see this all, how this all works out, and I think it'll be a good thing.
My we love you type shout out was Ralph's Mob had their, and of course there's some support interviews to go along with that too. Ralph's Mob did have our end of holiday picnic that we did this summer. So we announced our winners for all of our individual awards for players, not to mention the supporter group winners themselves. I don't have a list in front of me, and my memory is failing as to the names I think we had. We did post it up on Facebook, if I'm not mistaken, though, so you can certainly go visit the Ralph's Mob Facebook page to see who we awarded our individual accolades to, not just for the club but for the group itself. It would be remiss of me not to make sure that everybody does have a reminder of the upcoming Skyway Casuals Ralph's Mob Foot Golf Tournament happening at Treasure Island here in a couple of weeks. Pulling up a specific date right now because off the top of my head, I'm stupid and I didn't write it down beforehand. So, me being lazy and stupid again, as always, life is good. But it would be remiss if I didn't mention that. Please, that's going to be a fun time, right? We're going to be together as a combined group, having a good time. I think the idea right now is matched pairs, so don't think that you're going to be up against, somebody that's like a super former athletic player type of deal. It won't be something like that. Everybody's going to have matched pairs. So, but that's going to be February 9th. Okay. So that's going to be at 10 a.m. The course is going to be specific to us, so we don't have to worry about being rushed in some capacity. It is $20 per participant. It's half off alcohol, but you must bring your own ball. We're not going to be providing soccer balls for you. So make sure that you are doing that. You do need to purchase directly through the Ralph's Mob store. And listen to me. They are limiting tickets to 40 total, so 20 for each team. So
Right.
if you want to participate, you definitely need to go in and get your tickets. We are collecting the profits raised for the event are going to Gold Together for Childhood Cancer Awareness. So this is not just a cash grab for the supporter groups. This is actually more of a fundraiser competition for, a good cause. So please, if you're going, make sure that you're announcing it so that way it's kind of advertising to other folks that might not know of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that way we can get some folks out there and raise some money for a good cause. It is Sunday, February 9th. It'll start at 10 a.m.
It's the day after that preseason game in Jacksonville. I'm trying to figure out whether I can make it back in time to be at Treasure Island. I gotta wait and see the time and everything for this that game first, and before I can make a decision. All right.
I will point out. I was Ian, who is I believe still currently the president of Skyway Casuals, if memory serves. We were throwing out ideas about who potentially would be a good matchup opponent for me for matched pairs from Skyway, and Ian said that he was possibly going to nudge Herndon and see if Jeff would want to try and do a match pair against me for that particular event. So we were like, "Ooh, that would be an interesting match."
Find out who the foot golf champion of the podcast is.
Yeah, that would be fun. We're gonna have some extra money on the side for that, just for giggles.
Side bets. All right. Thank you, as always, to Wolfface, to Radio St. Pete, to Shamrock, and all of our other friends out there. Thank you to everybody who's listening right now or later on a podcast. Please continue to share, subscribe, rate, and review. If you'd like to support us on an ongoing basis, you can visit patreon.com/unusedsubspod. And choose from a variety of levels and perks and things like that. Thank you, as always, to our sponsor, Roughneck Scarves, the official scarf supplier of MLS, USL, and US Soccer. Get custom scarves for your group or team at roughneckscarves.com. Steven, we'll see what happens next week, but now that training camp's open, I think news will start coming more regularly. We'll probably have some player announcements, I would assume. We know they're still talking about doing some kind of announcement about the next phase of the Norwich partnership. So I would say more likely than not, we probably will be on air next week. But we'll wait and see what happens at 2 p.m. on the day of the show and make a decision then, because that's what happened today.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because last night we were like, maybe? And then all the news came up that we were like, definitely.
Yeah, I was like, okay, everything's dropping now. So, all right, I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you soon. I'll see you later. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Go Rowdies!
All the Rowdies.
The Rowdies were here, the Rowdies were there, they kicked the wall around.